Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to take some time and have some FaceTime with you guys and discuss a variety of topics. Now, I'm in a squeaky chair, so I promise you that's not gas, that's just the chair if you hear that creaking around. But anyway, we're going to talk about a variety of things that I don't get to discuss in day-to-day videos because they're reviews. You guys are mostly here to this channel to see products that you're about to buy or considering buying. Very little entertainment. So, I know I'm boring on some of the reviews. It's usually because I'm tired or I just woke up. But today we're going to talk about some topics that we can't get to. We're going to go over layout updates at the end of the video. Even though there's no progress on the layout, I will tell you right now, I will show you what is next and what's immediately coming up. So we'll be having some progress made very shortly. But the first topic I want to start with is kind of a behind the scenes look of how I operate this channel. And then some of the different things that we don't talk about much, like channel finances and how all of that works. So I'll start with how I operate the channel. There's a lot of things that go into account. So for example, right now you don't hear any noise, but if I record a video at certain times of the day or on the weekends, I've got to work around the noise of upstairs because right above me is kitchen, dinette, living room area, and it's just, you can hear the wood floors go against the floor joists and make creaking sounds occasionally. You can definitely hear the thump, thump, thump because nobody in my family knows how to lightly walk on their feet. So the environment is a huge issue. So what I typically do is I get up around 4:30 or 5 in the morning to record before I take my kids to school and before I go to my job. And that's another thing I want to bring up. This is not my job. My job is in healthcare, upper management, and that is a full-time job. I'm also retired military. So this is more of like a hobby within the hobby that it started with. And everybody thinks that this is a majorly profitable thing. Some people have mimicked what I've done to make it profitable, but the way I operate is not very profitable, or it's not very visible to be profitable. So what happens is there are ads that you see on my channel. Obviously, there's Google ads that whether I turn them on or not, they're going to play. So I get a small income from that. And then there's other ad revenues and kind of deals, discounts, etc., samples, product samples that make up the rest of the stuff that comes in the channel. What I have a very bad habit of doing is hoarding. I don't sell much. I've gotten better at this in recent years of being careful what I select, but the rest of that component, and it's a big slice of the pie, is my purchases. Just to give you an example, or are my purchases, I should say, just to give you an example, I'm recording this in September. Through about this time next year, actually a little earlier, and it doesn't even include everything because companies like Walters are announcing stuff right now that releases in January or February or March. But right now, my pre-orders are looking like about $21,000 between now and then. Now, and I get into a catch-22 with folks because I say something like that and they say, James, you're being arrogant. And I say, no, I'm trying to explain. And if I don't say anything, everything is free. Everything is free. We've had an ET44 review a couple of years back that really stirred the pot for some reason, where I had 21 scale trains ET44s worth close to probably over $5,000. And people assumed that scale trains gave me all of those. What happened in that case is they sent them to me as a sample and they sent them to me as a borrow. So I unboxed those. I took a day off work, which takes money out of the PTO pool, or, in the military, it was the leave pool. And I unboxed those, recorded the segment all day. It took all day. And then I boxed them back up and shipped them back to Scale Trains the same day because they needed them for a show coming up, basically. I don't know if they needed them that day, really. I was just trying to get it all done in one day while I was off. So a lot of times you'll see crazy amounts of trains and it doesn't mean free amounts of trains. Now, will I do that all the time? No. Now I'm even more busier than I was in the military because in the military I was in an upper management role. But in the military, there's like so many people wanting to do your job to get promoted with your ranks, different tasks, that I had like a fleet of assistants. Now I have one office assistant, and you know, she helps me with whatever I need to do. So I have less time now, so I've actually gotten out of the habit of the mass borrows. But I'll still do it on occasion. You will see an upcoming video from the Division Point SD70 ACE where I've purchased one of those. And there's going to be probably a bunch of those in the video if they decide to still send them, to show you all the variants. But to somebody not paying attention or not aware, they think like Division Point gave me $10,000 or $12,000 worth of locomotives, which is silly. So that amount of samples is never obscene if they're provided, and the amount of spend is still significant. So that's why I bring up the amount of spend. It's not a bragging point by any means. It's almost a point of shame that I spend as much as I do on model trains. Because, you know, the other thing that people don't consider is depreciation. A lot of trains can hold their value. You'll get the rare ones occasionally, but there's also depreciation that factors in. So as they sit on the shelf, if I don't sell them, you know, they may depreciate over the years. You know, an original blue box locomotive is not going to go for what you paid for it 9 times out of 10, or a locomotive that's now Paragon 1 versus the Paragon 4 that Broadway Limited has, or Paragon 2 versus the Paragon 4. So you still get occasional ones that can turn out, and there's a decent chance that you'll make your money back considering inflation or whatever, but there's just so many different factors. So I kind of equate this channel's income to the street game you might see when you're walking down New York City or LA, and there's 3 cups. They're like 3 solo cups, and there's a ball underneath, and you try to guess where the ball is when it's moving around really fast, because there's so much money in and out of this channel. But one thing is for sure, the spend far outweighs the income of this channel. So people have taken my kind of format, because I guess I was the first one to do HO scale product reviews, and they've changed it to make it more interesting. They've got day-to-day videos, and I commend them in a lot of cases. The few things I don't like about where YouTube is headed is you have to get more and more attention. The thumbnails have to be more ridiculous, you know, with writing all over them. You see that I've done that. There's all sorts of differences that have to be done on YouTube. The things I refuse to do, because I find that it's just flat out deceiving you guys, is like using a thumbnail that's not correct, or saying, oh, I fell off the layout, or there's this train crash. You know, those things will spike views, and they'll spike subscribers a lot of times, but I'm just doing this channel as an informational tool for you to choose product reviews. If you're looking at a product that you could go, you know that I'm going to look through all these different testing that's unbiased, that cannot be manipulated. I mean, I guess it could, but what's the purpose? But it gives you guys a look into what the product is like. And that's kind of the goal of this channel. So those folks that are doing kind of the tricky thumbnails, or train wrecks, or things that aren't true, like just fake thumbnails, have nothing to do with the video. If the item's not in the video, I'm not going to make a thumbnail with something that's not real. But those folks that are exceeding my channel in some cases in subscribers, and that's fine. You know, my channel views have kind of slowed since the algorithm changed. So there's 25,000 views per video on average about, but it slowly starts. You know, it used to kind of shoot up at the beginning and trickle. Now it's kind of a real slow start. So that kind of slow rise is kind of changing how my channel grows the views, but it averages about 25,000 views. I think it's got 28 or 30 million total views, which is good. And sometimes subscribers and views, people look at different things. I've seen channels with really high subscribers with really low views. I've seen a channel with almost 100,000 subscribers that's getting 200 or 300 views a video. So I kind of focus more on the views if I was going to be like worried about a change in the channel. But it's just, as I research this, it's essentially just a slower rise to the average that it averages out. And my channel's all over the place. There's videos with think 3, 4, 5 videos with over 1 million views. I think a dozen with over 500,000 views, or hundreds of thousands of views. And then there's some that just get 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 views. So it's kind of all over the place, but I kind of dove into, you know, if the channel's dying, because people have asked about that too. After the algorithm change, after YouTube Shorts got instituted, it changed a lot of people's channels. I've seen some really good channels that were really strong that aren't as strong anymore. I've seen channels that had really high subscribers now getting really low views. I've had channels, you know, getting about the same amount of views, but the subscribers have slowed, just like me. But the algorithms shift. Whatever they did with shorts has completely changed everything. But that brings me to my next point. I don't dig into the numbers much. I looked at those numbers a couple of months ago. I don't even remember. I don't even know what my subscribers are at right now. It's like 60 or 65 or 70,000, somewhere in there. But this is just not my job, and it's not my competition, because the people that are on YouTube, I consider as adding more value to YouTube, and adding another look if they're doing product reviews or whatever. A lot of people have been. So it gives you another option. If it changes any of my arrangements in the hobby, you know, at the end of the day, if all of this went away tomorrow, I would probably have more money in my bank account, because there's stuff I order. Well, like for example, unit trains. Like I've got 75 well cars on the table if I wasn't doing a video on it. But I wanted 150 to see what that could pull. So I bought all those extra well cars and containers, which cost a fortune. So I've got close to 160 actually on the layout right now. And I ran the Broadway Limited SD70 ACEs with those, you know. And so some people take it as competition and they're like, I'm going to run all these cars, you know, go for it. Yeah, but it's not affecting my family eating at all. So you go after my day job, we might have some problems if you're trying to compete with me there somehow. But YouTube is just fun and relaxing to me. I think everybody adds different value and a different perspective. So, and people can credit or discredit themselves with their own actions. I think a lot of misleading, you get too many videos where people are being overly dramatic with the thumbnail writing, or they're being misleading, and eventually people catch on to that as well. So I caution people from, you know, just trying to get clickbait, as they call it. So that's basically a background of how both the channel operates and the financial impact to my wallet, or what comes and goes in the layout room. I know you guys have seen different videos where I work with manufacturers. That's no secret. So I just think if I institute coupler height, NMRA standards, weight, operation, smooth drive, slow speed control with the AccuTrack 2 speedometer, those are things that can't be manipulated, or would be very hard to manipulate. So then that helps convey to you that I'm not on any company's side, I'm on your side to give you the facts of the model and give you a 360-degree look, unbox it for the first time, so there's no covering up issues with models. And you can see if it's lurching, if it's lightweight, if it's got parts flying off of it out of the box, etc. So hopefully that's where you guys understand my place in this. I catch a lot of grief sometimes. I don't know why, if it's a jealousy thing. I notice I catch grief that other channels don't when they're being more egregiously misleading in some cases. But I'm trying to develop a thicker skin when it comes to that stuff. It has been 16 years on the channel, and I appreciate every one of you guys that have stuck with me, especially since I was in my mid-20s, because you've seen me whiten and wrinkle a little bit, and 16 years is a long time to spend with somebody. And that leads me to my next point, a lot of time. Each video takes at least 4 hours if I'm doing it really quick, unless it's a YouTube short. 8 usually, or more when you consider the recording, the editing, the uploading, working around the schedule of my family, like I said, so you don't hear thump, 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 working around lawnmowers and everything else. And like on the layout right now, I did a review. You may have seen it, probably would have seen it at this point before this video, I did a review on the Athearn coal porters. So I had 15 up front that were from Athearn's recent run from Athearn, and I had 56 behind that. But I had to put all those on the layout. Pull out the re-railer, put them all on the layout. And then we had a derailment issue over on the other side. And I had to determine during the review whether that was a derailment issue caused by the car, or was it my layout? Because it was a car, I was going to put it into the review. But it was the layout. A switch was not fully thrown. It was just a little bit of a gap, and it caused the cars to derail. Of course, that's after I added weight to the cars, like 6 cars that were derailing. But I got it done. So it was a lot of work to get that video done, and that was before you even start on editing, uploading, getting those stupid catchy thumbnails that YouTube desires now without misleading you, and doing the title and description, writing that out, copying, pasting the other areas, including the disclaimer. You know, people ask where the disclaimer is, so it's in the description because it's like a foot long. So I explain exactly in the disclaimer on every video that usually these videos are kind of a mix of discounted items, samples, and items that are bought. A lot of items that are bought. So I put that in the description there for you to read. And so all of that goes in the video, and then you schedule a time. Scheduling it is also a few minute task as well. So when you take, I think 1,000, again, I'm not a great person on statistics here, but if you take 1,000 or 1,200 videos, whatever's online, I know it's over 1,000, and you take that and make it 4,000 hours, I think I did the math the other day. It was like 167 solid days out of my life in segments that is made, goes to making videos. That's time away from family if they're here. I try to make it to where they're not here. They're in school, or it's on Saturdays sometimes when they are here. But in general, that's time away. So if you take all of that time and all of the editing and uploading, and that's just giving it 4 hours. You give it 8 and you've got almost a solid year out of my life dedicated to this channel. But if you take that time, you understand that there's more of a time constraint on me to do that while I'm working and to provide you with the information. So hopefully there's a little bit of appreciation. I don't need anybody to bend the knee. I had a guy at Amherst walk up to me and he was shaking so bad, like I think he thought he was meeting the President of the United States. I'm just another guy. There's no ego involved. It's funny to me when there is ego involved in the hobby because it's the hobby. So walking down the street, you're not going to get attacked by a horde of girls or anything. My wife is very thankful for that, but probably not going to happen to me anyway at this age and no hair, and gaining weight a little bit. But overall, the people that have the ego in the hobby kind of crack me up because it's just the hobby, you know. Mr. Beast on YouTube or something, okay, I guess you can have a little ego. You're kind of a celebrity, but it just cracks me up, the ego out there. So there's no ego with me. I appreciate you guys. You guys are what drive me to both work on the layout, do reviews, take the extra steps. I could have easily just ran the 15 coal porters from Athearn by themselves. But I said, you know, the viewers would like to see maybe a whole unit train. That would be cool. So that's what I did. And I did it from a few different angles. I take your input all the time. One guy said, hey man, can you stop going straight on with these run-bys? So I started angling a little bit and getting kind of trackside, looking towards the locomotives, heading your way type of aspect as much as I can. So I appreciate you guys and I appreciate your input. That's kind of my point with that. So that was a background look at the channel. Now done with the boring part. Let's go look at what's planned for the layout. All right, behind the camera now, you can see I've got some graffiti I was looking at maybe trying to implement. You see a box fan on the floor. That's because that fan, along with this fan, which those are those little as-seen TV screw into a post fans and lights. They actually work pretty good. You just screw them into an existing light bulb. Those two fans and this dehumidifier, which I have to turn off every time I'm doing a video, that runs into a pump which pumps out to a drain, and the drain has an elevated tube on it, and it's really hard to get back there and see why there's an elevated tube on there, and it's not just towards the ground. But because of that, I have to do some plumbing like this dehumidifier, which isn't really used much unless humidity's crazy in here. I've got that routed to, I've actually got that hose routed back to the sub pump to pump it uphill to the drain. So that's kind of behind the scenes right now. It's usually about 41 to 42 percent humidity in here. Right now it's at 46 because I've had this off for a while. I've been filming all morning, several hours. So just this morning, videos have taken several hours of my morning, and I took a day off from work to handle that. Haven't done much with the display case. I put a few cars in there because these Lionel Freedom Train cars don't really have a home unless you put them in their main box. And over here is where the next action on the layout's going to be. You see all these auto racks? That is going to be an auto rack facility. I may have to kick this track out, but I have to be careful not to make an S-curve. So I may have to maybe even further out the bench work, but I'm going to try to do it without really moving the track so that the facility will fit in here. And it's going to be a Volkswagen factory based out of the Volkswagen in Ottawa, Tennessee, where the auto racks come up to it. Now there's already a lot of compromises I'm having to make, including kind of positioning where the tracks are compared to the building is going to be slightly off. But that is the plan. And then we'll get some good shots once that area is done, where I can kind of set the camera down here and you guys can see trains coming straight on with the backdrop and everything. As far as the backdrop goes, it'll be an Appalachian backdrop, similar to what's right here. If you guys haven't seen this scene, that's my Appalachia scene. And these backdrops from tracksideScenery.com have been really helpful to do realistic backdrops. So this whole scene is going to be rebuilt at some point in the future as well. A lot of the time I spend down here is when I'm kind of forced down here. If in-laws are visiting and they're spending time with the family, and I'm kind of staying out of their way because number one, they're in-laws, and number two, I want them to enjoy the family one-on-one time with the kids and the wife. Then I'll come down here and do a lot of work, and that's when a lot of work happens, like this whole Cheyenne scene. I've got put a power plant here recently. We've got Doctor Who. And then the Cheyenne scene was kind of completed. But as you see, the layout's kind of built to be more on surface level videography than, you know, a beautiful layout that you'll see in a magazine. So I'm going to try to do something with this, but it can create shadows, so I've got to be careful to merge all of this together at some point. You even see a little version of me and my cousin Chris on the layout. And this was before the days of, I think they're called mini prints, where they 3D scan you. This was made by a custom lady who did some custom figures, who is no longer in business. But yeah, that is me and my cousin. At least she made me look a little more buff than I am, because I am not as buff as I look in that little figure. But anyway, that's how the layout kind of progressed. And you'll see stuff out in the layout that's been out for a while, or has been pulled back out. Like somebody had a question on this Rapido 44 tonner. So I am also honorary customer support, I should say, for people. They like messaging me 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night because the manufacturers are closed, or during the day because the manufacturers aren't answering and haven't returned their call. And they'll be like, hey, I saw you reviewed this. Did yours stutter, or did yours have this sound, or did yours function so-and-so not work? So I'll go downstairs, pull it out of the box, and check for people when I can. I've kind of turned off Facebook Messenger comments to where those aren't responded much. So the best way to get a hold of me there is jlwreviews@gmail.com. But with my schedule, especially with the healthcare profession getting a lot more busy, I highly suggest that you guys reach out to the manufacturer, but I will help you when I can. It's just another task I end up with in this kind of position of making YouTube videos. So with that said, nothing else has really changed on the layout. It looks a little dirty, but you should have seen it earlier because I had to spend several hours cleaning as well, because I'll do a lot of reviews in a row sometimes and not put stuff back in the box like I should. So that is kind of a wrap on the layout update portion. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the look at both the layout and a little background into how things work behind the scenes on this channel. One thing I forgot to mention is the very piece of equipment I'm using, the camera. I'm using a Sony 4K AX53 camera to record these videos, and I don't upscale to 4K on YouTube because the editing software sometimes glitches. So I've kind of just stuck with 1080p. I've done polls and asked if it made any difference. I've looked at it on my TV. I'm not seeing much of a difference. So I'll stick with 1080p. 4K is a catchy thing, but it's just not in terms of making any image quality from distance viewing, watching on a phone or a laptop. You're not going to be able to see it much, so if at all. So I haven't done that. I can do that if I get a lot of requests for it. I ultimately answer to you guys. So if that's what you want to see, then I'll switch editing software and do that. But that's about it. But the additional thing about the camera actually is cost. That camera went out and it was pretty sure it was over $1,000 to replace. So I got the exact same camera again. And then other stuff like scenery and all that, tripods, stands for the phone, for YouTube shorts, all that costs money. So not complaining. I'm very blessed and very appreciative of you guys watching. I just want you guys to consider the whole picture. So in a sense, yeah, portions of the hobby, my hobby, are paid for, and I'm very grateful for that. In another sense, if you take all of those hours, I could have probably come out ahead flipping burgers and just not spending any money. Or just sticking in my day job and not spending any money at all and not having the hobby. But this hobby from the beginning of the channel has been documented. You guys saw me at my very first few items. The first few videos were product reviews, and then the first layouts, and just on to other layout builds until we got to this. So this is about 1,100 square foot footprint in a unfinished portion of my basement that has a garage door on one end. So people used to store cars in here and motorcycles. I've seen some previous pictures of that and some listings. You can actually fit quite a few cars in here. I saw one picture where I think there's 7 or 8 cars in here. But in general, you don't maybe get a complete view or idea of the size of this. Some people walk in and say this is smaller than they thought. Some people walk in and say it's larger. So 1,100 square foot is kind of the footprint of where the layout is. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you didn't see the Athearn Cole Porter run by, if I remember in editing, I'm going to put that in the end of this video. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the channel. Take care.